Bobby Manning, Sherrod Blakely, after the Celtics beat the 76ers in their last scheduled appearance here in Las Vegas, they are going to the championship.
It's not official yet, Bobby, but it will require them to not go to the championship that a couple of teams win by 40 or 50, 60 points, which seems highly unlikely. So I feel comfortable, and certainly you feel comfortable in saying that this Celtics team has played their way into the title game on Tuesday.
I've been saying it. They just look like they're ready for it. They've just been blowing through teams for three games here. But the interesting thing today was Romeo Langford returning to the starting lineup, 5 of 12, 13 points, ends this three-game stretch that he's played here. We'll see if he plays in the championship. About 38% from three, which isn't bad, 44% from the field. That could be a little better. And overall, a solid defensive floor that we saw from him in his first two seasons, and not a ton of growth on the offensive end. What do you make of his summer?
It's kind of a Romeo Langford summer. When he plays, he typically does enough to where he doesn't make you think he's playing horrible, but not quite enough to where you feel he stood out. I mean, as you went through his numbers, the one number that I like to look at, and again, depends on what the eye test tells me and the data tells me, and they were pretty much aligned, I think, in this game. He was plus 12 when he was on the floor, and they felt that they were about 12 points better than the Sixers when he was out there on the floor, and so that aligned. But the big thing with Romeo is there were moments, and we always talk about moments, it seems like, when we talk about Romeo, but there were moments when he did the kind of things that made me feel as though I want more of that. Like when he had a mismatch early in the first quarter, rather than just pull up for a mid-range jump shot, he just backed the guy down, scored on the block, and kept moving. And I want to see more of that. I want to see him recognize opportunities to impact the game offensively, because defensively, his instincts are good enough to where he's going to be where he's supposed to be most of the time. And even when guys scoring him, if he's making it difficult for them, that's what you want. I think defensively, he's where you want him to be, but it's his offense that I really want to see him become more comfortable with. And I'm not sure that this summer league is going to necessarily accomplish that.
I think a lot of people think, due to his pedigree from Indiana and what he was able to pull off as a high school recruit there, that they could be a higher upside here. Ultimately, though, it's the 14th pick. If he does fit in as a defensive stopper, as a guy who can play consistent minutes for a whole season, I think that is what you're looking for from him next year. 72 to 82 games, stay out there, be part of the rotation the whole way. At 21 years old, I think that's a legit goal for him next year.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, Bobby, the fact that he's only 21, I mean, we're not talking about a guy who is anywhere close to his peak as a player. And that's a very comforting thing if you're the Celtics, because he's already shown the ability to help you in a very clear phase of play, which is defense. And when you listen to, Coach Udoka, and you listen to, Brad, and you look at Brad Stevens, the kind of players he's bringing in,
Brad liked him a lot.
He liked him a hell of a lot. And it isn't just the fact that he has the whole Indiana connection there with him. But his style of play fits in very well with the type of players that Brad Stevens has had success with in the past. And when you look at Udoka going into his first year, I think that there's going to be an emphasis on who can help this team defensively, because you've got elite scorers, but who can fill out the edges of this roster, can give them that little extra something that you don't necessarily need as much from Tatum and Brown for, because they're going to give you offense, but who's going to do the dirty work? And I look at him, I look at Neesmith, I look at those two in particular as wings who can give them something at the defensive end. And again, as we pointed out earlier, Romeo, I think, has great defensive instincts, but I still would like to see him to flex a little bit more muscle on the offensive end.
Yeah, that's what you would have liked to have seen from him here overall in the offensive end. Just kind of a casual summer from him so far. There's still one more chance for him to go off. But I do think it was interesting that he hasn't talked to Ime yet about expectations, role, that sort of thing this year. So that could change when they ultimately have that conversation. Get in the training camp, there could be a new emphasis for him, because it does feel like, and it was a great press conference if you want to check it out on the main channel, he's still in that mode of, I earned my spot in this league through some frustration, through injuries on defense, and I'm kind of going to continue to do that here, and that's what he's showed so far. And the Celtics, Joe Mazulla and him, did push back on that passiveness tag that's been put on him. And I've said it too, and we've said it here on the show. We are some of the people who have been talking about just his casual look on the floor, and they said his positioning, his defense is important, and that's what he's given them so far. But you're so right. There's a little bit more there. He's not Semi Ojeleye. He's not just one-end player. He's got some offense in there somewhere.
I think sometimes people mistake Romeo's passivity for just playing the right way. The one thing he does a great job of is he's always physical defensively, and he waits for the right play to come to him. So, I thought he did a good job of being patient. I thought they were a little physical with him. on the dribble handoffs, and I thought he matched that physicality in the second half. So, he plays the right way, and sometimes, as much as people want guys that play the right way, I think he gets a negative connotation for doing it all the time. And when people are around him, they play better. So he was more physical in the second half.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that when you start looking at their young guys, and I look at him and I look at a guy like Jaylen Brown, who I think from a talent standpoint, really there wasn't a tremendous amount of separation from where each of them were when they came into the league. But the biggest difference is Jaylen made it clear from day one he wants to be a great player, and he could care less how that is going to look. Romeo is trying to fit in, and you're hopeful that in time Romeo will develop that confidence to be more than just a guy who can defend and can maybe knock down some shots, that he'll have that same desire to be more than just a pretty good player, because I think he has the potential to be exceptional. When you look at his length, you look at his size, the fact that he's a lot thicker than people realize. When you're up next to Romeo, he's
strong. He's got some strength.
I want to see him utilize that more on the offensive end going forward. And I know you got Tatum and Brown, and they're going to get the lion's share of the offensive touches. But because of the attention they're going to get, others are going to be able to eat well offensively too. And I want Romeo to put on some offensive weight this year. I want to see him be a little bit more greedy at that end of the floor when opportunities present themselves, because I do think he has the skills to do that. I just don't think he has the confidence right now to go out there and try to be more of an impactful player at that end.
Yeah, and we saw him flash some playmaking in the Brooklyn series too. Not a ton of that here, but there is something in terms of strength, in terms of his skills that he can bring to the offensive end of the floor. So that's something he's going to have to keep working on in this year, because you want a guy who's going to play as much as he is to be a two-way player. So that's going to wrap up our coverage here together. Hey, Sherrod, it's been awesome here. Talking every single day in Las Vegas. The Celtics are going to play on Tuesday. I won't be here. Sherrod will be. So follow him in some form or fashion out here. Read him at Bleacher Report, all the other places you're writing. Anything coming up?
Bleacher Report, just typical coverage of Summer League. That nothing significant. I just wrote about Russell Westbrook a couple days ago. So, and Russell and that ego and how that's going to fit in La La Land.
So we'll be back on post-game after Tuesday's game remote, and we'll talk to you then. Thanks for following along with our Vegas coverage. It's been awesome, and I appreciate your support as always.